reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus said to his disciples, "You are the salt of the earth. But if salt loses its taste, with what can it be seasoned? It is no longer good for anything but to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. You are the light of the world. A city set on a mountain cannot be hidden. Nor do they light a lamp and then put it under a bushel basket. It is set on a lampstand, where it gives light to all in the house. Just so, your light must shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your heavenly Father." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
I'm not sure if the microphone is working, is it? Thank God. One time I got up there and it wasn't working well, and I'm tapping, trying to get the whole contraption working, and it never came on. And with exasperation, I said to the congregation, "There seems to be something wrong with this microphone," and in unison they answered back, "And also with you." Anyway, thank you very much, Father Jerry, for inviting me to preach tonight and to share the message with all of you. And I ask you to journey with me for a moment across the sea to India, the eastern portion of it, to Calcutta. And there's a school there, St. Teresa's, where a young sister of Loretto went from Ireland. She wasn't born in Ireland, but she'd been properly trained there to become the principal of the school, prestigious one for young women in Calcutta. And she used to look out the windows of the school and see the slums in the distance. And there was a magnetic attraction that those slums had for this sister, principal, school teacher. And so she finally wrote to the Vatican and asked permission to leave the convent of St. Teresa and to follow in the steps of the great saint of Assisi, Francis. I'd seen the letter in her own handwriting, and was given permission to go and work there in the slums of Calcutta. Her name was Teresa. Now she's known as Blessed Teresa, Mother Teresa of Calcutta. And the slums where she first went to work were a place called Mutajil. I've given retreats for years and years to her sisters, and I've gone into that area of Calcutta, Mutajil, and the people there who lived in Mutajil at the time of Mother Teresa, and still there now, their homes were little caves built into the hillside with no windows. And because the waters would sometimes flood, they were very damp inside and very dark. And they would have to cook on little kerosene cookers, and that would make the walls even darker. So Mother Teresa called these little hovels where the poor lived in Mutajil the dark holes of the poor. And she was drawn to enter into these dark holes of the poor. And her prayer was, "Come, be my light. Jesus, come, be my light." And she taught the people who lived in these, you'd have 12, 15 members of the family living in a space no bigger than that occupied by the grand piano here, in darkness, with one bed. They had to take shifts sleeping, they still do, elevated about 6 feet off the ground. She taught every one of them to say that prayer to Jesus, "Come, be my light." And she taught her sisters to radiate Jesus when they would walk into these dark holes of the poor, so that the poor could see in her sisters and in the others who did voluntary work with their sisters, they could see the light of Christ radiating through them. That's what today's readings are trying to challenge our consciences to visualize, that there's a world with dark holes of the poor, not just in Calcutta, even here in Elon. Darkness doesn't have to be the physical darkness of a hovel with a kerosene stove in it. Darkness comes when people are lonely or when people are desperate. And so there are dark holes of the poor that we who have the light of Christ are invited to bring that light into the darkness of our brothers and sisters and help them to find meaning and find hope for the future. Now today's first reading from Isaiah gives the formula for how you and I can be light in the darkness of the lives around us, just the way Mother Teresa was light and brought Christ the light into the darkness of the slums. How you and I can, like Mother Teresa, bring that light in. The formula given in today's first reading from Isaiah is quite simple. Share your bread with the poor. It echoes, or the Gospel of Matthew later on will echo Isaiah in saying, feed the hungry, give drink to the thirsty, clothe the naked, welcome the homeless, visit the sick or in prison. And when you do that, you're actually ministering to Jesus Christ in them at the same time as you're imitating him. Mother Teresa one time came into the study where I was giving a retreat and sat down, and we had a lengthy conversation that time around, and she took my hands and she said, Father James, I'm going to teach you something. So I'll teach you what Mother Teresa taught me. She said, I'm getting old now and I don't always remember everything, so I use my fingers. And so I'm going to teach you the formula to be a follower who radiates Christ. She took one hand and she says, repeat after me. I want, and she had these thick, gnarled, but strong fingers. So she practically broke my little ones here. She says, I will, repeat after me. I want, with God's blessing, to be holy. I says, oh mother, I'll never remember that. I write down for you. So she wrote it down and even numbered what to say. So say it with me. I want, with God's blessing, to be holy. Now let me hear it.
I want, with God's blessing, to be holy.
And then she slapped down that hand. She said, not enough. And took my other hand. And she said, now repeat after me. You did it to me. I said, oh, that's much easier. She says, easier to say, but not to do. Repeat after me. You
did it to me.
A wee bit louder.
You did it to me.
She's quoting from Matthew's Gospel there, because Jesus said, when I was hungry, and you gave me food. When I was thirsty, you gave me drink. When I was homeless, you sheltered me. When I was naked, you clothed me. And when I was sick, you visited me. When you did that to the poor, you did it to me. So whenever you and I can do that, we're actually doing it to Jesus when we reach out and help our sick brothers and sisters, needy, poor, even those in the darkness of Elon around us. Then Mother Teresa, she wrote that down too because she thought I was a bit thick. And so anyway, she then took my both hands and squeezed them between herself, her own powerful fingers. She said, put together, you will be holy. Put together. It's not enough simply to have the aspiration to be the light of Christ to others. It's not enough just to want to be a seasoning salt in the lives of the people around you. You have to put those wants, those wills to be holy, to be light, to be salt. You have to put them into the practice of actions of feeding the hungry, giving drink to the thirsty, clothing the naked, sheltering the homeless, visiting the sick in prison. Only then will you be holy, and only then will you be living up to the challenge of our Christian Catholic faith. That's the message in today's gospel. Jesus challenges us to be a light to the world and salt. Now there's a rub to that. Salt, yes, it's a preservative, and yes, it's a seasoning. It also stings. Put salt on a wound and it stings. So we have a prophetic role in society as Catholic Christians. People won't always accept us as salt in their lives because it's going to sting a bit when we radiate the message of the gospel. The gospel has its controversy to it, doesn't it? Even light, as warming as light can be, and as illuminating as light can be, it also can be an embarrassing. When you see everything in the clear light of day, light can be embarrassing just as salt can be stinging. To be a Christian in 2014 at Elon, even with the likes of Father Jerry guiding the flock, is a challenge. And today's gospel gives us hope. And the second reading gives us the final key to how we can be light and salt, men and women of hope, and reaching into the darkness around us and bringing Christ the light. It's not on our own power. Paul was the first one to say he was clumsy, awkward, homely. There was nothing charismatic about Paul the apostle. But he knew that he was imbued with the power of God. And every one of you comes to Mass on a weekend, the likes of this, so that by receiving the Word, by receiving the Eucharist from the altar, you can be imbued with the power of God. And you take that power out, not to lord it over others, but to be a light, to radiate the light into the lives that are hungering, thirsting, desiring that light more than we might possibly know. There's an urgency that we not put off to tomorrow, the implementation of this call to be light and salt. And so let me conclude. I was leading a group of pilgrims from our parish in Dublin to the shrine of Our Lady of Knock in the west of Ireland. And when I was working over there for a number of years. And whilst walking across the shrine grounds there of Knock, I met an elderly woman with her little 4-year-old child in hand. Must have been her grandchild. So I stopped to have a chat. And I said to the little girl, "Do you go to school yet?" And she looked up at me, and with those wide Irish eyes, she said, "I don't." And I said to her, "When will you begin school?" "Next year, if God spares me." I looked at the grandmother. I says, "I think she spends a lot of time with her granny." "Indeed she does," said the old woman. Clueless as to why I was reading from year to year. But you know, whether we're 4, or whether we're 14, or whether we're 40, or whether we're 80, none of us knows how much longer we'll have the opportunity to be light and salt to others in this world. None of us knows what is the final script, the final page of our life. So there's an urgency not to put off to tomorrow what we can do today in implementing this gospel message. So would you think about today's gospel? Perhaps even reread it during the week. Come up with your own strategic plan for putting that gospel into practice. There's an urgency that we do it. As the lorry riding through the streets of our mission territory in Ghana, where Father Jerry used to go when he directed our missions. The lorry had printed on the back, "He who waits to the 11th hour destined to die at 10:45. So don't put anything off to the 11th hour. And may our Lord bless you and let you be light and salt to one another.